You know what I'm trying to do? Appreciate my life more, appreciate the people in my life more. We race through life, and if you're busy, a busy person, you know, which many people are, we're driven to make it somewhere, but man, you gotta appreciate every person you're around, and you gotta work to be present. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Bob Odenkirk never wanted to be a drama actor or an action lead. He wanted to write jokes in quiet rooms. But somewhere between a sketch pad in the desert and Albuquerque, this changed, and we got one of television's most complex characters and an actor who put his life on the line for his craft. In this video, we're going to go through the history and life of Bob Odenkirk, talking through his career and how he went from a comedy writer to comedy actor to drama actor to an action hero, and share some interesting tidbits along the way. I'd highly recommend you read his memoir, Comedy, 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 Drama, which goes into detail and tells some hilarious stories about his life, and also check out podcast appearances he's had on YouTube, as they are a great watch, and you can find the ones I used in this video linked below. Bob was drawn to the world of comedy through sketch comedy, which is unusual as it's usually through a love for stand-up and even doing stand-up where people get drawn in. His early influences included Monty Python and a Chicago radio host named Steve Dahl.
Most people are late bloomers.
After finishing high school early at the age of 16, after he was tired of high school, he left and went straight to the first of 4 colleges he would attend. Firstly, College of DuPage, Illinois, then Marquette University in Wisconsin, where he thought his now late father had gone to purely based on a rumour, then on to Southern Illinois University, which is in Illinois, believe it or not. This is where he nurtured his improv and writing skills on a college radio station where he hosted a show called the Prime Time Special, which is very apt because it aired on Thursday nights at 12 a.m. After finishing his last few credits at Columbia College in Chicago, he had graduated. However, his time in Columbia College was arguably a defining moment in Bob's education because it's here he would attend Players Workshop, Chicago's only official school for improvisation, and collaborate closely with Robert Smigel, who would eventually take Bob to Saturday Night Live.
It's Saturday Night Live.
Before we get to that, there was a time in Bob's life where he was a stand-up comedian, with his first line from his first stand-up act being, "I was raised Catholic, which means I'm an atheist now." The only problem with this being Bob was tired with the joke even after saying it just one time. Stand-up comedy is fundamentally telling the same series of jokes, night after night, club after club, town after town, before you move on to new material, and this just wasn't Bob's style. Robert Smigel would later write a sketch covering this very topic for Saturday Night Live, called The Stand-Ups. Speaking of Saturday Night Live, Bob had 2 chances to join SNL. The first, he admits in his book, was not handled correctly. He yearned for the way SNL was during its first 5 years, with blazing, try-to-catch-up approach, not what it had become, with corny hosts and corny bands in between smatterings of good ones. So after he bombed that first interview with Lorne Michaels and was miraculously given a second chance at a job a few months later, he would attribute this opportunity as one of the biggest breaks he would have of all time, up until Vince Gilligan's assistant handed him the phone in 2009.
Play hard when we should be working hard, but
Bob started SNL in November 1987, where he arrived in New York with everything a good comedy writer needs: 2 flannel shirts, an extra pair of jeans, and 3 sets of underwear. While writing for the show and learning everything he could, he came up with these ingredients to a sketch to get his work used on the show. Number 1, use the host. Number 2, write for the ladies. Number 3, something topical, read the news. Number 4, on set, no films. Number 5, loud and or reoccurring characters. He would try to incorporate at least 2 or 3 of these into every script that he did. It was only in his last year at SNL did he really feel like he was valued and had something to offer. This was because of Chris Farley, Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, Rob Schneider, and David Spade, and many others. These are the people he'd work closely with to bring their ideas to life. One particular highlight was having the sketch he had wrote and performed at Second City with Chris Farley remade for SNL. This is often cited as Chris Farley's best performance on SNL. Bob was now finished with his time on SNL. He had landed in LA, keen to carry on his comedy writing and acting career, with drama roles lurking in the background, waiting to come to fruition. Bob's next big break was on The Ben Stiller Show, where he wrote and acted in many of the sketches on the show, but most importantly would meet and become great friends with his comedy partner, David Cross, only after being a bit of a dick to him in the writer's room. But after riffing a whole scene together that left themselves and other comics in the room in stitches, figured they'd found something special between each other. This initial tension would blossom into an amazing friendship for them both, where in a Vanity Fair interview David Cross joked, "I knew I'd marry that man one day," and spawned some amazing comedy series such as Mr.Show with Bob and David, and a continuation of this series on Netflix called With Bob and David. There is also an as of now unreleased documentary show called Bob and David Climb Machu Picchu, where they're going to be talking about their careers, lives in Hollywood, and tell some stories which I'm sure will be hilarious. Mr. Show can be considered a cult comedy show. It has a loyal fan base but never really seemed to hit it big in the mainstream. But I would implore you to go and watch some of the show if you're interested in sketch comedy, the unique way in which each sketch mutates into the next, and Bob and David deliver on their promise of Monty Python through an American lens. Look up the sketches such as The Audition and The Joke, the musical, just to name a couple. Bob and David were able to reprise their sketch show with a very similar ethos and vibe 16 years after Mr. Show finished recording. This was the Netflix show called With Bob and David. This show sees the return of Bob very much playing the straight man as David plays the wild secondary. Returning as well is a whole host of actors and writers that were in Mr. Show. One particular favourite of mine was the interrogation sketch. I'd also highly recommend watching the making of episode, which goes into details about Bob and David's working relationship and the peeks behind the curtain of how good sketch shows are made. I think Bob excelled in his career by placing himself with other comedians who fit his sensibilities and he could learn from, moving from writing to writing and acting. He has cemented himself in the history of comedy and sketch show comedy, giving us some of the funniest and innovative comedy ever put to tape.
Saul Goodman. Nice to meet you.
Do you think if you've only ever been known for comedy, it means you can't branch out to other genres? I think Bob said it best when he said in a podcast interview for Movies Flicker with Michael McKean about getting his role for Saul Goodman in Breaking Bad.
There's a chance I'll show up on set and they will go, "You're Bob Odenkirk." Oh.
I had that. He had done the odd drama role here and there, but nothing specific, and wondered if they had even gotten the wrong Odenkirk and he had been mistaken for someone else. Later though, he did find out it's because Vince was such a big fan of Mr. Show. However, this gave us one of the most beloved and fun characters in the whole Breaking Bad universe, and even spun off into his own show called Better Call Saul. Bob had agreed to do 4 episodes, but couldn't even do one of them because he had already signed up to How I Met Your Mother. Vince Gilligan, the creator of Breaking Bad, liked Bob for Saul so much that they created a whole new character to carry the plot Saul was meant to, and that character was Mike Ehrmantraut. If you've seen Breaking Bad, you know how much of a deep, complex, and integral character Mike becomes throughout the story, and we have How I Met Your Mother to thank for that. Also, if you haven't seen Breaking Bad, go watch it. Stop whatever series you're watching and push this all the way to the top of your never-ending watch list. Saul will become the comic relief and round out as a character as the seasons of Breaking Bad progress, seeing him start as a con man only in it for himself, to becoming the voice of reason, where he tells Walter to quit, and someone who sticks his neck out for the people he cares about. Overall, a character people wanted to see more of, and this is exemplified nowhere better than the Breaking Bad documentary No Half Measures, where Bob has his final scene and thanks the cast and crew. In Bob's own words, he said, "I tried not to psych myself out about the shift I'd made. from sketch comedy to the world of dark drama. But in reality, he's done just that, shifted from his comedy writing roots and straight into drama. What will come later is the series Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould would create called Better Call Saul. After jokingly hearing it on set, to having it set up during the Breaking Bad episodes, to asking Bob again seriously if he thought there was enough character in Saul to carry a series. This was a good chance to give extra dimension to the character of Saul Goodman, but one thing they all agreed on was they needed to make him likable, and they did this by introducing the same character but different in the form of James McGill. This allowed us as the audience to see Saul/Jimmy outside of his usual character and costume from Breaking Bad as the sleazy lawyer, and Bob to express his acting skills by committing to the bit and fully actualize a character over its 6-season run as him as the leading man. Bob was able to carry his own show, which comes with large amounts of stress. Gone are the days of turning up to set, knowing your lines. There is so much more that goes into the process of being first on the call sheet, both mentally and physically.
Listen.
Shooting the final season of Better Call Saul could arguably be one of the most defining moments in his life, not just career. It was during this season where he suffered what he and the doctors would call a heart incident on set. But thanks to some fast-acting individuals and the fact that Bob hadn't gone back to his trailer after finishing the scene, means that he's still here with us today, thankfully. It's been covered and mentioned on many different outlets and podcasts about what happened that day, but I like this that he said on Today.
Like that.
I'm having a very slow epiphany.
Yeah.
Even right now. And the epiphany was simply that my life is pretty damn great.
Oh, great.
Gonna fuck you up.
After a series of break-ins to his family home and a realization that an action hero would be a particularly good fuck you to anyone anticipating his next career move, Bob sets his mind on being an action hero. A decision that would lead to improving his fitness and being a key indicator on why his heart incident wasn't as detrimental to his health in the longer term. Bob decided he wants to do as much of the fight stunts himself, so he worked with Daniel Bernhardt, who was Ronnie from the series Barry. They would work closely to both train and choreograph the fight scenes in this film, one famously being the bus scene. I would highly recommend you watch this scene, each beat meticulously practiced and choreographed. My favourite part of this scene is the section where Hutch, Bob's character's name, is thrown through the window of the bus. He has a chance to leave, but doesn't. He comes back in and finishes what he started. With Nobody, Bob Odenkirk showed everyone that he could be an action hero, so much so that recently there has been a Nobody 2 released, which follows a familiar premise to Nobody, but this time on vacation. So why did I make this video? I wanted to show a career that starts where you think it would, lots of luck and good friends, but ends up in a completely different place. Bob Odenkirk is an actor that has looked at Hollywood and said, I don't want that trajectory for my career, and forged his own. I wanted to leave you with two things. One, from Bob's memoir, which is his dream work week. 2 days acting in a drama, 3 days writing and acting in a comedy, 2 more days of half drama, half comedy, 1 long night shooting an action sequence on a cold bus in Winnipeg, and there being no weekend required. This just sums up how Bob wants to have his career, not pigeonholed into one archetype or role in the industry, but to use his experience and abilities across the board. And lastly, a clip from Mike Birbiglia's podcast where Bob describes who he is jealous of. This speaks to Bob as a person, how his life and career has changed him and his outlook on life and family.
Who I'm jealous of?
Who you're jealous of?
Gee, anybody who's still got little kids at home growing up.
Oh.
Yeah, there's no question I knew what I was doing when I had kids growing up.
Yeah.
I was being a dad. I mean, that was my job. And I didn't have to ask myself, what am I doing here? What am I doing? How can I be a part of this world? How can I be meaningful today?
Yeah.
I didn't have to ask that question because the fucking answer is pick up everything between here and the door.
Yeah, that's right.
And make sure they get to school and